$3,500 a month. That is what a modest retirement costs in a mid-tier American city: housing, food, healthcare, utilities, transportation. The average Social Security check covers roughly $1,800. That leaves a gap of $1,700 every single month, and for the nearly 50% of American private sector workers who have no employer-sponsored retirement plan at all, there is nothing else to fill it. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, a single retiree can cover rent, meals, healthcare, a housekeeper, and a full-time caregiver in the Philippines for less than $1,500 a month, total. That is not a hypothetical. That is the arithmetic driving a growing wave of Americans to leave the country in their final decades. Millions of Americans are entering retirement with no pension, no defined benefit plan, no employer-backed safety net. For a growing number of them, Social Security is the only guaranteed income they will ever receive, and in most of the country, it is not enough to live on independently. The traditional model of American retirement, a pension, a paid-off home, Medicare, and modest savings, has collapsed for a significant portion of the population. In its place is a patchwork of underfunded 401k accounts, rising housing costs, and medical expenses that increase with every year of age. Some of these retirees are making a decision that would have been unthinkable a generation ago. They are leaving the United States and resettling in Southeast Asia, specifically, the Philippines, not out of wanderlust, but out of arithmetic. This is a report on why that is happening, what it costs, how it works, and what the real risks are. The shift away from pensions did not happen overnight. It unfolded across decades, beginning in the 1980s, as American employers moved from defined benefit pension plans to defined contribution models, primarily the 401k. Under the old system, companies bore the investment risk and guaranteed a monthly payout for life. Under the new system, that risk transferred entirely to the worker. The result, decades later, is a generation of retirees whose retirement savings depend on how much they contributed, how well their investments performed, and whether they avoided withdrawing funds early. Many did not contribute enough. Many saw their balances diminished by market downturns, fees, or early withdrawals during financial emergencies. According to the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances, the median retirement account balance for households approaching retirement age falls well below what most financial planners consider adequate. A significant number of Americans between the ages of 55 and 64 have no retirement savings at all. Social Security was never designed to be a sole source of retirement income. It was intended as one leg of a three-legged stool, alongside pensions and personal savings. For those who have neither of the other two legs, Social Security alone must carry the full weight. The average monthly Social Security retirement benefit in the United States is approximately $1,800. For many recipients, it is less. That figure falls below the cost of independent living in the majority of American cities and in many rural areas as well, once housing, food, healthcare, utilities, and transportation are factored in. For renters, and a rising share of seniors are renters, the situation compounds. Rent increases routinely outpace the annual cost of living adjustments applied to Social Security. A retiree who could barely afford rent 5 years ago may no longer be able to today, even with COLA increases, because housing markets have moved faster than the adjustment formula. To understand why some seniors are looking overseas, it is worth examining what retirement actually costs in the United States on a month-to-month basis. Housing is the largest single expense for most retirees. For renters, median one-bedroom apartment costs in mid-tier American cities now range from $1,000 to $1,500 per month, and significantly more in coastal or metropolitan areas. For homeowners, the mortgage may be paid off, but property taxes, homeowners insurance, and maintenance on aging homes remain. A new roof, a furnace replacement, or a plumbing failure can cost $5,000 to $15,000, expenses that a retiree on a fixed income may be unable to absorb. Healthcare follows close behind. Medicare covers a portion of medical costs for Americans 65 and older, but the gaps are substantial. Medicare does not cover dental care, vision care, or hearing aids without supplemental coverage. Part B premiums, Part D prescription drug premiums, copays, coinsurance, and deductibles all come out of pocket. Medigap or Medicare Advantage plans reduce exposure but add monthly premium costs. A retiree managing multiple prescriptions, a chronic condition, or a need for dental work can face hundreds of dollars in monthly out-of-pocket medical costs on top of premiums. Food costs for a single senior typically run $300 to $500 per month, depending on diet and location. Utilities, electricity, gas, water, internet, phone, add another $200 to $300. Transportation, even in areas with public transit, can cost $150 to $300 a month when accounting for insurance, fuel, and vehicle maintenance for those who still drive, or ride-share costs for those who do not. Add it all together, and a modest retirement in a mid-tier American city requires somewhere between $2,500 and $4,000 per month at minimum, assuming no emergencies and no long-term care needs. For a retiree whose only income is an $1,800 Social Security check, that is a shortfall of $700 to $2,200 every month, a gap that compounds year after year. One major medical event, a hospitalization, a surgery, an extended rehabilitation stay, can trigger a financial crisis. One significant home repair can force a choice between fixing the problem and covering basic expenses. These are not hypothetical scenarios. They are the lived reality for millions of American retirees right now. If you are watching this and you are retired or approaching retirement, what does your monthly budget actually look like? Are you above that $2,500 line, or below it? Drop your number in the comments, no judgment. It helps everyone watching this understand the real range of what people are dealing with. Faced with this arithmetic, a growing number of American seniors have done something their parents' generation rarely had to consider: they have gone back to work. The trend is well documented. Labor force participation among Americans 65 and older has been climbing for years. The reasons are primarily financial. While some seniors work because they find purpose or social connection in employment, surveys consistently show that the dominant motivation is economic necessity. They work because they cannot afford not to. The gig economy and remote work have expanded the range of available options. Some seniors drive for ride-share services. Others take on freelance or contract work. Some find part-time retail or customer service positions. These roles offer flexibility, but they rarely include health benefits, retirement contributions, or job security. For seniors past 70, the options narrow further. Physical limitations restrict the kinds of work that are feasible. Age discrimination, while illegal, remains a well-documented barrier in many industries. Health complications, a fall, a cardiac event, worsening arthritis, cognitive decline, can end employment abruptly and permanently. There is also a psychological dimension. Working into one's late 60s or 70s because of financial pressure carries a toll that is difficult to quantify but easy to observe. Fatigue, stress, and a sense of having been failed by a system that was supposed to provide security, these are common threads in interviews with working seniors who expected to have stopped by now. At some point, for every working retiree, employment is no longer possible. The body declines. The mind may follow. And when supplemental income disappears, whatever financial margin existed disappears with it. It is against this background that the Philippines has emerged as a retirement destination for a specific subset of American seniors, those with limited income, no pension, and a need to stretch every dollar as far as it will go. The cost of living difference between the United States and the Philippines is not marginal. It is dramatic. Take a mid-tier American city, somewhere like Tucson, Arizona, or Knoxville, Tennessee. A modest one-bedroom apartment rents for $1,000 to $1,200 per month. In Cebu City, Dumaguete, or Davao, three of the most common retirement destinations for foreigners in the Philippines, a comparable apartment rents for $300 to $500 a month. A nicer unit in a good location with modern amenities can be found for $400 to $600. Food costs are similarly reduced. A full meal at a local restaurant in the Philippines costs $2 to $4. Groceries for a single person, including meat, fish, rice, vegetables, and fruit, run $150 to $250 per month. An American retiree who shops at local markets and eats a mix of home-cooked and restaurant meals can eat well for a fraction of what the same diet would cost in the United States. Utilities in the Philippines are variable. Electricity is relatively expensive by Southeast Asian standards, particularly for those running air conditioning throughout the day. A typical monthly electricity bill for a one-bedroom apartment with moderate air conditioning use runs $50 to $100. Water is inexpensive, often under $10 a month. Internet service with adequate speed for video calls and streaming costs $25 to $40 a month. A prepaid mobile phone plan with data runs $10 to $20. Transportation is low cost. Taxis, ride-hailing apps like Grab, Jeepneys, and tricycles provide affordable options. A retiree who uses ride-hailing services regularly might spend $40 to $80 a month on transportation, a fraction of what car ownership or ride-share services cost in the United States. Healthcare is where the cost difference becomes most striking. A doctor's consultation in the Philippines typically costs $10 to $25. A visit to a specialist runs $20 to $50. Dental cleanings cost $15 to $30. A tooth extraction might cost $20 to $40. A full set of dentures can be made for $200 to $400, a procedure that would cost $1,000 to $3,000 or more in the United States. Prescription medications, particularly generics, are dramatically cheaper. Common maintenance drugs for blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, and other chronic conditions can cost a fraction of their American equivalents, often 80 to 90% less. Hospital stays, including private rooms, run $100 to $300 per night at mid-range private hospitals. A surgical procedure that would cost tens of thousands in the United States may cost $1,000 to $5,000 in the Philippines, depending on complexity. Taken together, a single American retiree can live modestly but comfortably in the Philippines on a total monthly budget of $800 to $1,500, including rent, food, utilities, healthcare, transportation, and leisure. That figure brings a middle-class lifestyle within reach of someone whose sole income is a Social Security check. By comparison, the same standard of living in a mid-tier American city would require $2,500 to $4,000 per month. That is a savings of 60 to 70% on overall cost of living. Put differently, an $1,800 Social Security check that leaves a retiree $700 short in Knoxville, Tennessee, leaves that same retiree $300 to $1,000 ahead in Dumaguete or Davao. The gap is even wider on specific costs. A doctor's visit, $15 versus $200, a 92% reduction. A full set of dentures, $300 versus $2,000, 85% less. Monthly rent for a one-bedroom apartment, $400 versus $1,200, 67% savings. Monthly groceries, $200 versus $400, 50%. These are not cherry-picked outliers. They are representative of the cost structure across both countries. For a retiree choosing between poverty-level existence in the United States and a stable, comfortable life in the Philippines, the math is straightforward. The decision, of course, is not. If you have looked into retiring overseas, whether the Philippines, Mexico, Portugal, Thailand, or anywhere else, what country are you considering, and what made you start looking? Put your answer in the comments. For those already living abroad, what is your actual monthly spend? Those real numbers are more useful than anything in a brochure. Any American considering retirement in the Philippines must first address the question of legal residency. The Philippines does not permit foreigners to work in most capacities, but it does offer multiple pathways for long-term residents. The two most relevant options for American retirees are the Special Resident Retirees Visa, known as the SRRV, and the 13A Spousal Visa. The SRRV is administered by the Philippine Retirement Authority. It is available to foreign nationals aged 50 and older. The visa grants indefinite residency and includes the right to enter and exit the country freely, exemption from certain travel taxes, and the ability to import household goods duty-free during initial relocation. The SRRV requires a US dollar deposit placed in an accredited Philippine bank. The minimum deposit for retirees 50 and older with a pension has historically been $10,000, while those without a pension income have been required to deposit $20,000. These deposit amounts and the program-specific terms have changed at various points, and prospective applicants should verify current requirements directly with the Philippine Retirement Authority before making plans. The deposit is refundable upon cancellation of the visa. Some SRRV options allow conversion of the deposit into a condominium purchase or long-term lease, though this comes with additional rules and restrictions. The 13A visa is available to foreign nationals married to a Filipino citizen. It grants permanent resident status and does not require a large cash deposit. The 13A is initially issued as a probationary visa for 1 year, after which it converts to permanent status. Holders can live and travel freely in the Philippines and are not required to maintain a minimum bank deposit. For many American male retirees, the 13A pathway intersects with a broader social and cultural reality. A significant number of American men who retire in the Philippines do so with a Filipino spouse or partner. Some meet their partners online. Others meet them during prior visits to the country. In some cases, the relationship develops over months or years before any relocation decision is made. Marriage to a Filipino citizen provides a direct path to permanent residency and eliminates the need for the SRRV deposit. It also provides a domestic support structure, a spouse who understands local systems, speaks the language, and has family networks in the country. There are, however, risks that must be addressed directly. Cross-cultural marriages involving significant age gaps and economic imbalances carry inherent vulnerabilities. Financial exploitation, pressure from extended family, and disputes over property are documented issues within the expat community. Philippine law does not permit divorce, only annulment, which is a lengthy and expensive legal process. Mitigation strategies include prenuptial agreements recognized under Philippine law, maintaining financial accounts in the retiree's name, avoiding placing property solely in a spouse's name, and seeking legal counsel from an attorney experienced in Philippine family law before formalizing any arrangement. These precautions do not eliminate risk, but they reduce exposure. At some point in the aging process, employment of any kind ceases to be an option. For American seniors living in the United States, this moment represents a financial cliff. When supplemental income, from part-time work, gig employment, or freelance contracts, disappears, the retiree is left with whatever fixed income remains. For those without pensions or significant savings, that means Social Security alone. In the United States, the options at that point are limited. Medicaid may cover long-term care for those who meet strict income and asset thresholds, but qualifying often requires spending down nearly all remaining assets. Family support is available to some, but not all seniors have family members who are willing or able to provide housing or care. Institutional care, nursing homes or assisted living facilities, is an option, but the costs are extreme. This is where the comparison between the United States and the Philippines becomes most relevant for those in the later stages of aging. The median annual cost of a semi-private room in a U.S. nursing home exceeds $90,000, that is roughly $7,500 per month. A private room exceeds $100,000 per year, or about $8,400 per month. Assisted living facilities, which provide less intensive care, average approximately $60,000 annually, around $5,000 per month, with significant variation by state and facility quality. Medicare does not cover long-term custodial care. It covers short-term skilled nursing following a qualifying hospital stay, but once the skilled nursing benefit is exhausted, the cost reverts to the patient. Medicaid covers nursing home care for those who qualify financially, but the process of qualification, and the quality of Medicaid-funded facilities vary widely. In the Philippines, long-term care facilities exist, though the industry is smaller and less standardized than in the United States. Private nursing homes and residential care facilities in the Philippines typically charge between $500 and $2,000 per month, depending on the level of care, the location, and the quality of the facility. Some facilities cater specifically to foreign retirees and offer English-speaking staff, private rooms, and higher service standards. At the upper end, $2,000 a month for a private facility in the Philippines, the cost is still 73% less than a semi-private room in an American nursing home. Quality of care is a legitimate consideration. Philippine facilities do not operate under the same regulatory framework as American nursing homes. Accreditation standards, staffing ratios, and training requirements differ. Some facilities provide excellent care. Others do not. Due diligence, visiting facilities in person, speaking with current residents and their families, and verifying accreditation with the Philippine Department of Health, is essential. One factor that works in the Philippines' favor is the country's caregiving culture. Filipino caregivers are employed in hospitals, nursing homes, and private residences around the world, and the profession carries social respect in Filipino society. The Philippines produces a large number of trained nurses and caregivers, many of whom work domestically before or instead of seeking overseas employment. For many American retirees in the Philippines, institutional care is not the preferred model. A more common arrangement, and one of the most financially compelling aspects of retiring in the Philippines, is private, at-home care provided by a live-in caregiver. In the United States, full-time in-home care is extraordinarily expensive. A home health aide working 40 hours per week costs approximately $50,000 to $60,000 annually, roughly $4,200 per month, in most states, and more in high-cost areas. 24-hour care requires multiple caregivers working in shifts, which can push the annual cost to $100,000 to $150,000 or more, $8,000 to $12,500 per month. Agencies add fees on top of caregiver wages. Insurance, liability, payroll taxes, and compliance requirements add further cost. In the Philippines, a full-time live-in caregiver earns between $200 and $400 per month, depending on experience, location, and the scope of duties. A housekeeper or domestic helper earns a similar amount. It is common for American retirees to employ both, a caregiver and a housekeeper, for a combined monthly cost of $400 to $800. To put that in direct comparison, 24-hour care with a caregiver and a housekeeper in the Philippines costs $400 to $800 per month. The same level of coverage in the United States costs $8,000 to $12,500 per month. That is a savings of 90 to 94%. The live-in arrangement is culturally normalized in the Philippines. Domestic workers typically reside in the household, receive room and board in addition to salary, and are considered part of the household structure. This model allows for continuous, around-the-clock care without the scheduling complications and costs associated with shift-based care in the United States. Medical oversight in this arrangement is facilitated by the availability of physician home visits and the relatively close proximity of hospitals in Philippine cities. A doctor willing to make house calls, a rarity in American healthcare, can be arranged in many Philippine cities for $20 to $50 per visit. Proximity to a hospital with emergency services is an important factor in choosing where to live, and most expat retirees settle in urban or suburban areas with access to medical infrastructure. Philippine labor law governs the employment of domestic workers, and compliance is important. Employers are required to provide a written contract, register the worker with the Social Security system, and contribute to PhilHealth, the National Health Insurance Program, and the Home Development Mutual Fund on the worker's behalf. Minimum wage for domestic workers varies by region and is set by regional wage boards. Failure to comply with these regulations exposes the employer to legal liability and is, beyond the legal dimension, an ethical obligation. For anyone watching who has experience hiring caregivers, in the US or abroad, what has that process actually been like? What did it cost, and what would you do differently? Leave your experience in the comments. First-hand accounts are worth more than estimates. Retiring to the Philippines addresses many financial problems. It does not address all of them, and it introduces new ones. Distance from family is the most frequently cited emotional cost. An American retiree living in Cebu or Davao is roughly 20 hours of travel from most U.S. cities. Visits from children and grandchildren require international flights, time off work, and significant expense. Video calls mitigate some of the distance but cannot replace physical presence, particularly during medical emergencies, holidays, or family milestones. For retirees with close family ties, the separation is a genuine and ongoing burden. Currency risk is a financial consideration that many retirees underestimate. Social Security is paid in US dollars. Daily expenses in the Philippines are paid in Philippine pesos. The exchange rate between the two currencies fluctuates, and a meaningful shift, the dollar weakening against the peso, can reduce purchasing power by 10 to 15% or more over a period of years. A retiree whose budget depends on a favorable exchange rate has built a vulnerability into the foundation of their financial plan. Political and regulatory risk in the Philippines, as in any foreign country, is real. Visa policies can change. Tax treaties between the United States and the Philippines may be modified. Local regulations affecting foreign residents, property ownership rules, banking restrictions, residency requirements, can shift with changes in government priorities. The SRRV program itself has undergone revisions, including temporary suspensions and changes to deposit requirements. Retirees who build their entire retirement plan around a specific visa program or regulatory framework must accept that the framework may change. Healthcare in the Philippines, while affordable and generally competent for routine and mid-level care, has limitations. Highly specialized procedures, certain cancer treatments, advanced cardiac surgery, complex neurological interventions, may not be available at the same level as in major U.S. medical centers. Some retirees maintain the option of returning to the United States for specialized care, though this requires maintaining Medicare eligibility. Medicare does not cover healthcare received outside the United States. Retirees living abroad who wish to preserve their Medicare eligibility must continue paying Part B premiums, even though they cannot use the benefit while overseas. Dropping Part B and re-enrolling later incurs a permanent premium penalty. This creates an ongoing cost for a benefit that functions only as a backup option. Estate planning across two countries adds legal complexity. Wills, trusts, powers of attorney, and end-of-life directives must account for both U.S. and Philippine legal systems. Assets held in both countries may be subject to different inheritance laws, tax obligations, and probate processes. An American retiree who owns a condominium in the Philippines, holds bank accounts in both countries, and has heirs in the United States needs legal counsel in both jurisdictions to ensure that their estate plan functions as intended. The pension gap in the United States is not a problem on the horizon. It is a present reality affecting millions of Americans who are already past working age or approaching it. The Philippines is not a solution without trade-offs. The cost savings are substantial and well documented. The healthcare is affordable and, for routine and moderate care, adequate. The caregiving infrastructure, particularly the availability of low-cost private in-home care, addresses one of the most expensive and difficult challenges of aging. But the trade-offs are real. Distance from family. Dependence on a foreign legal and political system. Currency exposure. Limited access to specialized medicine. The emotional weight of building a life in a country far from the one where most of a lifetime was spent. These are personal decisions, and no single analysis can resolve them for every individual. What can be said, factually, is this: the traditional American retirement model, employer pension, personal savings, Medicare, and Social Security working together to provide a stable and dignified final chapter, has broken down for a significant portion of the population. For those who fall into that gap, the options within the United States are narrowing. And for a growing number of them, the Philippines represents a viable, if imperfect, alternative. The numbers make the case. $1,800 a month in Social Security. $3,500 needed to get by in the US, $800 to $1,500 to live comfortably in the Philippines. 93% savings on in-home care. 73% savings on long-term residential care. 85% savings on dental work. 67% savings on rent. These are the figures. The decision, ultimately, belongs to the individual. If this information was useful to you, subscribe the channel for more videos to come, leave a comment below. Are you planning for retirement right now? Have you already made the move overseas? Are you weighing the trade-offs? Whatever your situation, put it in the comments. Your perspective adds to a conversation that affects millions of people, and the more real data and experience that gets shared here, the more useful this becomes for everyone watching.